Hello, everyone, and welcome to College Driven's online live masterclass, College Terms 101, Speaking the Language of College Admissions. This, however, is part two of our masterclass that began last month. So, to help everyone understand the distinction between college and college admissions, I wanted to make sure that we separated out the two different concepts. So it was just too much information. That's what it was. It was just too much information to put into one master class, and I didn't want it to be overwhelming. Okay, so that's why this is a part two. So welcome back. We have a recap from part one. Before we dive into today's master class, I want to quickly recap what we have been learning and where we've been. Okay, so in part one, we focused on understanding the language of college itself, right? We talked about the different types of colleges. We talked about bachelor's degrees, majors and minors, campus life, career building opportunities that are at colleges that you would want to be looking for, and all of those buzzwords, right? Colleges love to use on their websites. So, really, part one of the masterclass really became more of a how to navigate a college website like an expert. So today's masterclass is a bit different. Today we're shifting our focus from college to college admissions. So think of it this way. Part one answered the question, what is college? Whereas today's masterclass is going to answer the question, how do students actually get admitted to college? So we'll be talking about application plans, admissions decisions, rankings, financial aid, testing, and the terminology you'll hear throughout the admissions process. I would like to extend a special welcome to anyone who's joining us for the first time from the Knowledge is Power Club. So, since our membership is rolling, it's perfectly okay if this is your first masterclass. If you missed part one, don't even worry. I've linked the recording in our Slack community, and I encourage you to watch it when you have time. But it'll give you a great foundation for everything we'll continue to discuss throughout the year. And if you're not a Knowledge is Power Club member, please email me and I'll send you a link to part one, because I certainly don't want you to miss out on anything. Okay? Now, one of the biggest reasons families feel overwhelmed by the college process isn't because it's impossible, right? It's because no one ever teaches them the language. So once you understand the terminology, the process becomes much less intimidating. So let's start with one of the first decisions students encounter when they apply to college. And that is the question of, when should I apply? So with this, our objective is to understand, when are these deadlines that are coming up? There are different application plans, in case you didn't know. So one of the first decisions you're going to make isn't where to apply, it's when to apply. You'll hear colleges refer to different application plans, and each one comes with its own deadlines and rules. And not every college has all of these application plans as a choice for you. Okay, so it is very much college specific. So these are, again, very, very important to understand so that you can start planning how your senior year eventually is going to look like. So for early action, this is an application plan where you're applying earlier than the regular decision application deadline. You're also, however, receiving an admission decision earlier than the people who apply the regular decision application. What's nice about this is that you not only apply early and you get to know their answer towards your acceptance or not early, but it's non-binding. Okay, you're not committed to attend if you are accepted into the university. You have all the way up until May 1st, the national decision deadline, to make your final decision. So that's really, really nice. You can usually apply to multiple schools early action. I tell many of my students that if a college offers early action and they're ready with a strong application, it's often worth considering. We're really, if I'm working with juniors, that's exactly what our goal is to be ready for every early action deadline and to have a very strong application by the time that deadline comes. Now let's talk about early decision, often referred to as ED. Early decision, once again, just like early action, you are applying early. You're also going to receive a decision early, but this is binding. This is a serious, serious contractual commitment between you and that university that if you are admitted, you are expected to attend. Of course, provided that the financial aid package is affordable. That is really one of the ways that you can get out of your contract, but be very, very careful about that because, in a way, you get blacklisted on a universal list, basically saying, well, this one applied early decision, but they are not accepting. That is not the way that you want to go on this. All right. So for my clients, if you're going to apply early decision, this is serious business. Okay. This means that you have visited the college. This means that you have vetted every single aspect of that college, that you have visited other colleges. And this particular one just rose to the top. You cannot imagine yourself anywhere but this college because this is the end all be all. And all you want is to get an acceptance and you know you're going. Like there's nothing else out there that you would even consider. That's how serious this is. In addition to that, just to add to the seriousness of an early decision application, you are signing a contract between yourself and the university stating that if you're admitted, you will go. Your parents will also get an email saying that they understand the contractual obligations of your early decision application. Your counselor will also have to sign a document that states that they have gone over the early decision guidelines and expectations, if admitted, with you. And they too are vouching for your honesty on this. I also have my own contractual agreement with students that say, have you considered X, Y, and Z on all of this? And if so, are you ready to do an early decision application? So this is only appropriate if you found your clear first choice school, okay? There is a lot of controversy as to, does this help in your admittance rate? And although many colleges state that it has no bearing one way or the other, what I have to say is that that is absolute hogwash because the numbers state everything. Okay. Um, if you are ready with an early action or early decision application, you are being considered amongst a smaller group of applicants than if you are going into a regular decision application where everyone is applying, right? But what you do need to understand is that people that are applying early action or early decision are typically the ones that are the cream of the crop. So your competition is going to be greater within that applicant pool, even though the numbers will be smaller as to who you're evaluated against. Okay, so understand that. So that's the little gray area of what colleges say versus what the reality is. Next, we have restrictive early action, or REA. Now, this one confuses people, and not many colleges have restrictive early action. Um, Most, if not all of the Ivies do, but also other colleges, like for instance, Notre Dame has a restrictive early action. So think of it this way. If a college that you are applying to has restrictive early action, what they are indicating to you is that they want you to have a decision that you can make without any obligation come the time that you're going to make that final choice for college. So what that means is they're going to stand by this, and they're going to say that restrictive early action means that because we want you to have a choice, you cannot apply early decision anywhere. And by the way, when you are applying early decision, because it is a contractual agreement, you can only apply to one college early decision. You can apply to multiple colleges early action. That's not a problem. But if you're going to put down the early decision ticket, that only goes to one school. And that should make sense, right? That should make sense because if you put down at two schools and you're accepted to both, you can't go to both, right? So you have to understand that as well. Is that early decision, that ticket goes to only one college. With restrictive early action, they don't want you applying anywhere early decision because they want you to have that choice. So restrictive early action is still non-binding. You still apply early. However, the college limits where you apply as well. Specifically, colleges vary on some of them state that you are able to apply if a state school, for instance, has early decision. Again, these are the nuances within your specific college selection, but understand that some restrictive early actions also deem that early action to other schools may not be allowed. So there's a lot of rules that are very specific to specific colleges, but in general, restrictive early action, the biggest takeaway here is that you cannot apply early decision anywhere. Okay, all right. Next, we have rolling admission. So my favorite way to explain this is imagine a bucket, okay? And applications are reviewed as they arrive. For many other schools that have an early action or early decision or a restrictive early action, they wait to collect all of the applications. And then after the deadline, they will open up the floodgates to then examine those applications. With rolling admission, like I said, applications are reviewed as they arrive, and there isn't one giant decision day either. So if you are applying and you're in these the space that's available at that college starts to fill that bucket up one drop at a time, one drop at a time, and you can't fill any more drops into that bucket of water, then that's it. It's done. When the bucket is full, then the application status stops. They are not examining anymore. They're not taking any more students for that upcoming college year. All right. So if you see something that is rolling admission, the earlier that you apply, you often hear back earlier, and your chances are greater in getting into that college because, again, you are getting in at the very beginning when the bucket is empty and starts to fill up quickly. You still have a chance. If you wait on that rolling admission and there may not be any more room in the bucket to add to that. Okay. And then finally, we have regular decision. So this is the traditional application deadline. All applications are reviewed after the deadline, and students usually hear back in the springtime. Okay. And so what you need to know is that for early action, typically, again, typically, If you're in the South and you offer early action, that typically is around the October 15th timeframe. Anyone outside of the South, the Southern schools, it's typically around November 1st. Some colleges have it at November 15th and some have it at December 1. But typically, any early action or any early decision application is usually due in the November or December timeframe, and the regular decision is usually due in the January timeframe. Okay. Now, why would you choose one over the other? Okay, if it is offering an early action. Well, here's the thing: applying early action does not guarantee you admission, right? It simply means that you're applying earlier. Well, some of you may still have something to prove to college admissions people come senior year first semester. And if you had a challenging start to high school, right? And that freshman year GPA just was, it wasn't the greatest, right? GPA, I mean, geez, it's hard to overcome. It is talking, you're talking like a snail's pace of improvement, right? So if you start off where, you're just not hitting the ground running, right? Then you've got a lot of ground to make up sophomore and junior year. And sometimes you're not able to get to the GPA that might be the average GPA at that college. So you may need that extra semester of senior year to really help you get a bump up and be competitive amongst the applicant pool that's being evaluated, right? So a stronger application does still matter, right? It matters more than applying early. And so with that, that really is, something to consider and to plan that out as well. I can tell you that, for the people that apply regular decision, the decision dates have really been kind of lingering on and on. Sometimes they've been, in past years, it's been around March. And for many of the highly selective colleges, they've been going into April, which is really kind of stinky because you have to make your decision by May 1st. That is the National Decision Day. So you really don't have a lot of time, of course, unless you're an early decision candidate. If you have gotten in to early decision as an early decision applicant and you've gotten in, then what you also must understand is that you have to go, right? So that timeline of you knowing that you're in and you have to go, your enrollment deposit will be due in January. So typically it's around, I think, $500 is what it typically is. But you will be putting in your enrollment deposit in January to secure your spot. And then there's another thing that has to happen. And here is the thing that I think upsets students the most. You must withdraw all of your other applications to the other colleges to which you have applied. So you're never going to know how you fared at XYZ University or ABC College. You're not going to get that answer because you know now where you're going and you have to remove your application from the applicant pool there. Okay. So a little tip that I have in these application plans is this: never rush to submit an application just to meet that earlier deadline. Okay, a stronger application, like I've stated, submit a little later is almost always better than a weaker application submitted early. Okay, I've told this many, many times to students. Okay, so here's what you need to ask yourself. If you had a dream college today, and you get to that point of senior year, would you feel comfortable committing to it before hearing back from every other college? Because that's what's going to happen. Okay. Now, once you've submitted your application, what happens next? Let's talk about the different admission decisions you might receive. So the first, of course, the one everybody wants, right, is admitted, right? Now, here's the thing. If you are part of my Knowledge is Power Club, that club, this information is for freshmen through juniors. You're joining me here as a freshman, sophomore, or junior, and you don't need to memorize these today. All right. I don't want you to do that. Instead, my goal is simply for these terms to sound familiar when you hear them over the next few years. Okay. So students should understand, right, what each decision means, but more importantly, what you do next. So after you've submitted your application, the admissions office reviews your file and eventually sends you a decision. So there are four outcomes you'll commonly see. So, like I said, admitted is the one that you always, that's the one you want, right? The college is offering you admission. Now, that decision shifts from the college choosing you to you choosing the college. So, at this point, you've got some work ahead of you, right? You've got to start evaluating the academic fit, the financial aid, the campus environment that you're going into, and if you like it or not, the opportunities on campus that we talked about in part one. Uh, that is what you're going to be evaluating. And then, of course, the cost of the institution, not just for that first year, but for year two, year three, year four, because typically colleges, there are very few colleges that freeze tuition for all 4 years. Purdue University is one of them, but they are a rarity. So when it comes to tuition increases with colleges, you can expect between a 4 to 6% increase year over year. So then the next admissions decision that you might get is denied. The college has decided not to offer admission to you. But I always remind students a denial, please hear me when I tell you this, is not a statement about your worth or your potential. It simply means that based on this year's applicant pool, they weren't able to offer you admission. And sometimes tens of thousands of highly qualified students are denied every year. I want you to know that. I also want you to understand that a denial means that that is a blessing. Because here's the thing, year over year, colleges change how they want their incoming class to look like. And if you were capable on every other front, right? You had the grades, you had the test scores, you had the leadership, you had the service, the passion project, all of that could have been working for you and you still got to deny, then you say thank you to that university. Because what that means is that you just didn't fit into that applicant pool that they were trying to create for the upcoming year. So, had you gotten in somehow with that, you wouldn't have been happy within that particular class. Okay. Maybe in 2 years, you'd be perfect for who they were looking for. So, it is not a rejection of who you are as a person or what you brought to the table. It's just it wasn't who or what they were looking for that particular year. Okay. I remember there was a statement that was stated by an Ivy admissions rep. And they said that if they had eliminated all of the applicants that they accepted and they started with the next people that were under the actual ones that were admitted, if they went to their top list of rejected, every single one of them would have gotten in if the ones that had gotten in were removed out of the equation. Okay. So it doesn't mean that you can't do the work there. It doesn't mean that you lacked something. Okay. That is really, really important to understand. Okay. So then there's a term called deferred. This one causes the most confusion. Because deferred is a term in college admissions that basically you're in admissions purgatory, is basically what this means, right? They're not saying no, but they're not ready to say yes. So usually this applies to students who apply early action or early decision. The application moves then into the regular decision pool for another review. Okay. So you had everything that they were looking for, right? But they're just not quite sure. So instead of offering you admission immediately with either early action or early decision, they're going to move your application into, they're going to wait on it, they're going to shelve it. And when they get all the other applications within their regular decision pool, they're going to throw yours in there and just review it from the very beginning like they've never even seen it before. Okay, because then they're going to compare you to the regular decision applicant pool. And that application decision, again, just kind of leads you into a waiting game, but you will still hopefully get a decision soon thereafter when the regular applicants also get their admissions decision. But waitlisted is one that is, I have to be honest with you, it's the one you don't want, to be honest, okay? A waitlisted decision is different. The admissions office has completed its review. You have met their standards. However, they don't currently have enough space in the incoming class for you. So if enough admitted students decline their offer, the college may admit students from the wait list. I've got to be honest with you though. I mean, if you've been waitlisted to places like a Carnegie Mellon or a Northwestern or a Georgetown or, any highly selective college, I've got to tell you that you need to drop it and move on. You almost have to see that waitlisted decision as a deny only because I want you to maintain your sanity. Okay. I don't want you pining for something that probably isn't going to come your way. Okay. So this all has to do with yield. And a college's yield is very, very important. They may have 2,000 seats open for the incoming class, but they're going to send out 4,000 admissions letters saying you've been accepted, right? And if they obviously they don't get everyone, right? They don't get everyone. But what if they don't even meet those seats of 2,000 seats that are waiting? Okay, they might be short by 100 seats. So that's when they go to the wait listed list and they look that over again. And you may or may not get a decision. But here's the thing, forget it. You have got to go with the college that you have been admitted into, put in your enrollment deposit, and get excited about who wanted you because you also wanted them. And forget about that wait list. Yes, you can put in, please keep me on the wait listed list, because you're going to have to do that if you get waitlisted. They're going to ask you, do you want to be considered? I always tell clients, yeah, go ahead for the heck of it, right? But you're not even going to find out until like June. For some colleges, even July, right? That you're off the wait list, if you even are off the wait list. So it is a rarity that students get off the wait list and are admitted. I'm not saying it never happens. Okay. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is you cannot count on it to happen. So let's talk a little bit more about that deferred decision. So the common myth is that deferred means I'm basically denied. And I want you to know that that is not true in any way, shape, or form. Okay. Some students, many of my students, are actually admitted after being deferred. Others are denied, but some are waitlisted too. So a deferral simply means that the college wants to take another look at your application. They are going to take a look at your application again, right? So never build your college list assuming you'll be admitted from a wait list. That's poor strategy. Always make sure that you have colleges on your list that you're excited to attend. And this is the philosophy of college driven. So here's the thing. If you were deferred, I work with my clients to write what's called a letter of continued interest, a LOCI, LOCI. Okay. And what that is you are going to be writing a letter, writing an email to your college admissions rep and the admissions office. And you're going to do this. You're going to explain how you've continued earning strong grades, how you're following the college's instructions by, if they want this information and request it, absolutely take advantage of this. Okay. Submit meaningful updates, any new awards since you've applied, any new leadership awards, leadership roles, improved grades. Okay. So this is so important because it's never over until it's over. That's what deferral means. And so if the college gives you an opportunity to share more, absolutely take advantage of that. It's the letter of continued interest is also an opportunity to convey why you still want to be considered and why it's so important for you to for them to understand how interested you are in attending their college. Okay. So take advantage of that. Deferral, like I said, doesn't mean that game over, because that is not the case. Do you see how deferred and waitlisted sound similar, but they happen at different stages of admissions? And that's what you need to understand. And it's also deferred is opportunity. Waitlisted is pie in the sky. Okay. And I remember there was a student that I had actually, and um, he was deferred from admission to a very highly selective college. And when we received that deferral, we immediately asked the guidance counselor to send, his latest transcript so that they had his latest grades. He also went to each teacher and said, right now on this date, what do I have in your class? Okay. In addition to that, we shared with the college um, everything that has happened that is significant since he applied to that college back in the fall. And so we went ahead. It was very simple, by the way. It wasn't a novel of any kind. It was just, hey, here is my information. And then he also did a paragraph of, um, why this college remains his top choice. And within less than 24 hours, he received an acceptance letter from that college. So I want you to know that deferred means hope. Waitlisted could mean false hope for you. Okay? All right. So now that we understand the possible decisions colleges make, let's talk about some of the admissions buzzwords you'll hear throughout the process of college admissions. So some admissions buzzwords are something called holistic review. Okay. And holistic review, this is probably the most overused phrase in college admissions, but it simply means that the admissions office looks at more than just your GPA or test scores. Okay. They may also consider your course rigor, right? Your activities, your leadership roles, the essays, the recommendation letters. They're trying to understand your character, the content within each piece of your application and the context that it's in, any kind of special talents or backgrounds, right? I love saying this. You're more than a number in a holistic review. So here's what holistic review, though, does not mean. Everyone has an equal chance. That is not what that means. Okay, selective colleges are still highly selective. But if you get past that first obstacle of do you have the grades? Are you aligned with their average GPA of the people that get in? Are you aligned with the average test scores of the people who get in? Then you are moved to the holistic review. And you are then being evaluated as the whole person. Okay. Then there's something called demonstrated interest. And some colleges actually track how interested you appear in attending. And not every college tracks demonstrated interest, but it's an important aspect within the application process. If the college tracks demonstrated interest, that can make the difference between an admit or a deferred slash rejected. And what that means is basically how much do you want the college? And this is really for colleges that want to protect their yield, meaning the equation for yield is, if you can think of a fraction, the numerator is the amount of students that are accepted and going to college, that college in the fall, divided by the number of acceptance letters that were actually sent out. Okay. And so demonstrated interest helps colleges understand the likelihood that you will be attending in the fall, which of course helps their yield. So, how can you demonstrate interest? You can visit their campus, obviously. You can join virtual events, virtual, um, campus tours, even. Attend an information session, especially if they are coming to your town. Okay. If they're coming to your town, absolutely go ahead and introduce yourself in person at those events. In addition to that, many institutions are tracking whether or not you've opened up their email. They are watching whether you have um, clicked on any of the links and how much time you are spending on their website. So, although it sounds like a big brother watching kind of uh, situation, just know that that is possible and that you are being tracked on those. Okay. Now, in addition to that, connecting with your admission representative in your local area is also, I think, encouraged with demonstrated interest. Make them your best friend, okay? And think of questions that you could be asking your college admissions rep. That's what they're there for. So always assume that a college notices genuine engagement. I mean genuine, not fake, authentic engagement, even if they don't officially track demonstrated interest. I think that still does help. Okay. Then there's something called legacy. Legacy is a legacy applicant is someone whose parent, and at some colleges, another close family member, usually grandparent, attended that institution. All right, so some colleges do consider legacy, and that will help you in gaining admission to that college. Okay, so never assume that legacy guarantees admission because it doesn't, but it can certainly help if you have all of the other boxes checked off. Um, there have been in recent times many colleges that have completely taken out legacy status within their admissions procedure. One of them that comes to mind is University of Virginia, for instance. So they say that it doesn't matter, but often wonder about that, to be honest. In addition to that, understand that typically legacy stops at the grandparent level. So you can go parent, you can go grandparent, but if your uncle went there, if your cousin went there, typically that does not make you a legacy applicant. Another buzzword is first generation student. A first generation college student is generally someone whose parent or parents did not earn a 4-year bachelor's degree. So many colleges offer scholarships or mentoring or transition programs or academic support for first generation students. There are colleges that draw the line to did not earn a 4-year bachelor's degree anywhere, whether it's in the United States, whether it's offshore in India or any or in Russia or anywhere else. Okay. Then there are some colleges that define first generation student as someone whose parent or parents did not earn a 4-year bachelor's degree within the United States. So depending on your college specific application, that is something that should be defined for you within that particular college. Okay. And then, of course, I purposely saved this one for last because this is your philosophy. If you've learned anything from me, I hope it's this. The goal is not to find the highest ranked college or the most expensive college or the most famous college. The goal is to find the college where you will thrive academically, socially, financially, personally. That's what I call best fit. Okay, so when you picture your future college, what's the one thing that's important to you? Because it's probably going to be different. It's going to be a different answer if I ask parents versus students. So a college can be perfect on paper and still be the wrong fit for you. All right. And the highest ranked college is not automatically the best college for you. And I want to keep emphasizing that. All right. So now that we've covered the language admissions offices use, let's talk about another topic families hear all the time, and that is college rankings. So anytime you hear a college use a phrase you don't understand, I don't want you to be intimidated. I want you to be curious. Okay. I want you to ask your admissions rep or even on the tour, what does this mean? Can you give me an example? What does this look like for students? That one habit will make you so much smarter as a college consumer. Okay. So let's talk about those rankings as tools and not report cards. Okay, one of the biggest mistakes families make, I feel, especially starting at the very beginning of this whole game, is assuming there's one definitive ranking of colleges. There isn't. So I think the gold standard of it is US News and World Report. Okay, every year they come out with their, college rankings. And if you go back to part 1 of the Masterclass prior to this one, you will understand between how they rank the colleges, whether it's a national university, whether it's a liberal arts college. Those are 2 separate ratings, right? There are also other ratings like Midwest or, regional Midwest, regional South. Those are different rankings as well. So please look into the part 1 of the masterclass so that you understand that. Okay. But there's also Forbes. So Forbes places greater emphasis on return on investment, graduate outcomes, debt, and alumni success. Whereas US News and World Report, which by the way, they're changing what their rankings are based on every single year, but typically they're using factors like graduation rates, faculty resources, peer assessments. Okay, so just be very careful with the rankings, how each ranking is evaluated, because there are games played and colleges are trying to climb up that ranking ladder. They'll say that they loathe any kind of rankings, but secretly they're trying to climb it. So, take that with a grain of salt in the fact of this is their modus operandi is to increase their reputation as a college. There's also a ranking called Poets and Quants. It's a trusted source for undergraduate business program rankings. To be honest with you, this particular ranking for undergraduate business schools is the one that I lead my clients to if they want a ranking of their business school that they're looking into. I like this one better than Forbes. I like this one better than US News and World Report. Okay. Niche is also another resource that incorporates student reviews and campus life alongside academics. The only warning that I have with Niche when looking at those rankings is that it is typically based on people's individual experiences. And you don't know if that review from that person, if you are like that person, if you align with that person's thoughts, that person's values, your experience will probably be very different from the experiences that are being used to rank schools through Niche. So understand that. Okay. And then finally, one of the other gold standards is Princeton Review. Okay. It doesn't publish an overall national ranking. Instead, it's known for categories. So it bases its list on like best dorms, best food, happiest students. And again, a lot of this information really can be manipulated by either students themselves or the college. So I'm going to say it again. You need to visit, you need to investigate for yourself from the perspective of who you are, what you're looking for in a college, and where you'd be most happy. Okay. So if a college moves from 28th to 35th, let's just say, do you feel that it suddenly became worse? The answer to that is no. All right. Rankings change because the methodologies change, data changes, other schools change, not necessarily because the education has changed. In addition to that, and no, I'm not saying this because I'm an alum of Case Western Reserve University, but I can tell you that Case was rising up. It was really, chugging along the ranking ladder up to top 20. And then US News and World Report did some kind of weird change of their rankings, and Case fell to number 38 or some, you know, devastating number like that. And I've got to tell you that it's not representative of Case Western Reserve University. And I really feel if there's any university out there that really doesn't get its just desserts, I do believe it's Case. But, I would never look at that new ranking and that fall to be indicative of a lowering of education standards, because that is absolutely not the case. Rankings can help you discover colleges, but they should never make the decision for you. Okay. So the thing to ask yourself is if two colleges offered your intended major, had similar costs, and felt like a great fit, but one was ranked 18th and the other 42nd, would the ranking alone change your decision? That's really a good question to ask yourself. I have a client who wants to apply to Princeton, and it's like a triple reach school for him, right? But he wants to apply because he's a very competitive applicant. In life, he's competitive, and he just wants to apply to the number one school currently in the nation based on U.S. News and World Report ranking because it is number one. Now, he's into brand colleges as well. And I asked him if all of a sudden Princeton fell from number one to number 50, would you still want to apply to that school? And he said no. So I think that is a telling question that will reveal a telling answer. Okay. So testing terms, let's talk testing terms here, right? So I don't want you to wait until senior year to get your head wrapped around what testing you're going to need. Okay. And if that's the case, right? Um, man, I've got to tell you, standardized testing it's one of those things that I absolutely loathe. Okay. Um, personal statement here. A standardized test is not a test of intelligence. It's basically a test of how well you can take a test. That's my opinion. And I understand that there are a variety of opinions out there that differ from my own. I get that. Um, Perhaps I am naive to think that um, not taking a standardized test and instead evaluating students on their application in other ways is a better way to go. Harvard just recently, I think it was last fall, due to test optional, meaning you didn't have to take a standardized test to apply to Harvard, it is the first time that they had to introduce a remedial math class to that because they just weren't prepared. They just weren't prepared. So, perhaps that's an issue. Yes, I know, and I get that. But let's talk about if, and again, the best thing that happened from COVID is that the majority of schools went test optional, meaning that you didn't have to submit a test score as part of your evaluation of admittance in your application. But times are changing. So we're back to a lot of colleges wanting those test scores again. So you've got the ACT and you've got the SAT. Which one do you take? Which do colleges want? I can tell you that it doesn't matter. You could either take the ACT or the SAT. Colleges don't care which one you give them. For my clients, I always tell my clients that you should be taking both the ACT and the SAT just to see which one you do better in because they are different tests, right? The ACT is more of testing you on what you've learned within your classroom, whereas the SAT is more about applying what you've learned to scenarios that are asked of you, not necessarily what you have, specifically learned within class. So take both of them, see which one you do better at, see which one is more your brain aligned, and then stick with that one and try to improve on it. Okay. Um, Piece of advice, ACT and SAT, when you are applying and registering to take these exams, please do not put down any colleges for the free score report. They will introduce the concept as, hey, are you interested in any colleges? We could send up to 3 score reports for free. You don't have to pay for it. Understand this. Once you have taken the exam, that's it. Those scores, whether you had the flu that day or not, are going to the colleges that you have indicated. So you want to control that admissions process as much as possible. You do not put down any colleges so that you can decide if the score that you received, you want it to be viewed by your future college for that application. Okay. So just do yourself a favor instead of backpedaling and trying to explain why you did poorly. Just don't put any college down at all. Okay. Then there is the PSAT. Many of you will have taken the PSA in 10th grade. Okay, great. That's just a little, dip your foot in the water to see about the standardized testing, and that's fine. The one that matters, however, the PSAT, is the one that happens in your 11th grade year in the fall. That PSAT score will be evaluated for National Merit Scholarship. Now, National Merit Scholarship, it's really not a big deal for the amount of money that you get. It's like $2,500, right? But it's not about the money that you get. It's more about the prestige that you can tout if you are the top 1% if your score is the top 1% within your state. That's why I can't really give you a number of what you're shooting for because that changes every year. I can say that every year, though, it's been, getting narrower and narrower and going up. That I can tell you. So if you are the top 1% scorer, from your PSAT that you take in the 11th grade, then you will be a national merit finalist. Okay. If you're slightly below that, you are considered a national merit commended student, which really doesn't do much for you other than, hey, you got close, but no cigar. Okay. So there's that. Now, when it comes to the ACT and SAT, you will probably take that exam more than once. So, as you're taking those exams more than once, you have an overall score which averages the different categories that you're taking the testing in, but you will also have multiple scores. So, let's say you took the ACT 3 times and you scored high in the individual categories, but on different dates. That's no problem. The super score takes every category, looks at the highest score, regardless of when you took it, and takes that and recalculates your composite score, your overall average score, using your highest scores within each category. So the ACT has the reading, the English, the math, and now science is optional. But again, if you're pre-med, if you're engineering, obviously, science is something that you're going to have to sign up to do. Okay. For SAT, it's the verbal versus the math score. Those are the two categories. So, reading, verbal versus the math. Those are the two categories in SAT. And you can go ahead and take your top score within each category and recalculate for your super score. Understand, however, that not all colleges accept a super score score. So that is something that is very college specific. Most do. Many of the state schools, strangely enough, do not. And so keep that in mind. Okay. Then some colleges will say test optional. Test optional means that it's up to you whether or not you want to share your scores or not. And if you don't share your scores, the college claims that this will not be used against you. This worked very well during the early stages and a little bit beyond of COVID, but it's really not working today. Test optional, in my opinion, should be changed to test preferred because I think it's pretty obvious to college admissions officers that you do have every opportunity these days to take that test. And if you are going in as test optional, you probably didn't score very well. Okay. Typically in college admissions, if you see the word optional, it doesn't really mean optional. But then there's something called test blind. And test blind means that in no way, shape, or form do they even want you to send scores. Even if you did great, they don't care. University of California admissions is like this. They don't want to know what you scored on your ACT or SAT, even if it was a perfect score. They are not going to be looking at your test scores when evaluating you for admission. So understand that. Okay. So next we have those AP scores. And within those AP scores, based out of a 5, right? So you can get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5. And you're trying to earn college credit there. So you're also trying to earn an honor within that. So you can become an AP scholar if you've taken 3 or more exams and scored a 3 or more average with all of your APs that you've taken. An AP scholar with honor, that average score is a 3.25 or higher on scores of 4 or more exams. An AP scholar with distinction, that's an average score of 3.5 on all exams, with scores of 3 or higher on 5 or more APs. So I think that's a really great way to earn an honor, and know that not every score is able to be transferred over to colleges. Ohio State University accepts all threes and above as college credit, whereas more highly selective colleges, some only accept a five. Some will typically do a four or a five, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get credit towards your graduation requirements. That just means that you are in a higher level within an English or, within a math, for instance. So every college is different. And if that's important to you, then you should certainly investigate that a little further. Okay? All right, we've talked about national merit and the AP honors. So next we have financial aid vocabulary. Now, I am not going to spend a lot of time on this because I have a master class entirely dedicated to financial aid and the cost of college coming up in September. Okay, the reason I'm doing it in September is because the FAFSA usually opens up in October. Okay, but even if you're a freshman parent thinking we don't need to worry about financial aid yet, this is actually the best time to learn it. Understanding how college costs work today can influence the college list you build over the next few years. So these are terms every family should know, but they're important enough that they'll be the focus of our September masterclass. Okay. Here's the thing though, don't wait until senior year to estimate what college might cost your family. The worst situation that you could get into is not talking finances and costs with your student in a realistic sort of way. Because even if they are the best student at their school, the best student in their state, perhaps even the best student in the world, okay, there are several colleges that do not give scholarship based on merit unless it's need based. So you need to understand that, okay? So two different kinds of applications that come into play for financial aid are the FAFSA report and the CSS profile. And although they are accomplishing the same thing, they do it in different ways. Okay, so not every college accepts the FAFSA report, but not every college accepts the CSS profile. If the college that you're interested in accepts both, then please make sure you input both applications to that college. FAFSA application is free. CSS profile has a slight fee when applying in that manner. Okay. But here's the thing with FAFSA and CSS profile, you have to understand that that is going to be there's subsidized loans, unsubsidized loans, and grants. Grants are what you don't pay back, loans are what you do pay back, and whether it's subsidized or unsubsidized is going to be whether you start to pay right away without earning interest or you wait until after graduation. Again, this is going to be detailed out in the September masterclass. Okay, so I'm not going to really dig deeply into this, but what you could be doing right now, every college, if you go on their website, has what's called a net price calculator. It's one of the best tools families can use to estimate what they may actually pay after grants and scholarships. But remember, the estimate is only as accurate as the information you enter. So if you're putting garbage in, you're going to get our garbage out. All right. So understand that as well. Okay. Years ago, everyone talked about the estimated or expected family contribution called the EFC. But today, the FAFSA uses something called the Student Aid Index. So that's a term, that's an acronym that has changed recently over the years. So you'll hear both terms because many parents and counselors and even some websites will still refer to the expected family contribution, the EFC, out of habit, to be honest. But that is actually the Student Aid Index today. Okay. So, that's what I want you to understand. I'm trying to get you to understand, if you do go to the website, what you're actually looking at, and so that you can understand it. Okay. So please, I encourage you to use those net price calculators rather than trying to estimate a student aid index all on its own, because the student aid index is only one piece of that puzzle. Okay. A college's actual cost depends on the family's financial information, the college's own financial aid policies, merit scholarships if they provide them. No Ivies give merit scholarships based purely on merit unless you're need based. Why? Because merit, if you're getting in to a Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Penn, what have you, everybody's merited. Okay. Then there's also institutional grants that you're going to have to consider. Those grants typically come some from the government, some from institutional endowments. Okay. Harvard has billions in endowment that they can provide for students. And that doesn't mean, however, that you're going to get a dime of it. Okay. So whether the college meets full demonstrated need or not is also an example. Two colleges can give the same student dramatically different financial aid packages, even with the exact same student aid index. So, one piece of homework that I think is really critical here is visit those websites of two colleges that you think you might be interested in and run their net price calculators and compare and run both of them with the exact same information and then compare the estimated costs. You might be surprised by how different they are. Okay. So, that's, I think, very important. And we will delve deeply into that in our September masterclass. So, for next month's masterclass, August, we are going to be talking about passion projects. We're going to be brainstorming it. We're going to be discussing what the heck it is, how you get started with one. If you are a freshman who is attending this masterclass, understand that you have the best opportunity right now to really dig deeply and create a passion project that is going to just be outstanding by the time you get to senior year and will really weigh heavily on your college application. So the earlier you begin your passion project, the more impact you'll have within a community that's really important to you, and that's what colleges love. Don't be discouraged, however, if you are here as a junior, there is still time. And by creating a passion project in August, that will then be your roadmap to then executing once school starts and getting that community involved and following you and your passion in making a difference. Okay, so August 30th at 4 p.m. is going to be the next masterclass. And if you go to collegedriven.com and look at the events tab, you can go ahead and register for free. The code this time around is all caps love it. And registration closes at 3 o'clock the day before the master class. So if you wait until after 3 o'clock the day before to want to register, unfortunately, you will be shut out of that. Okay? All right. So for those of you who are attending this master class and are not a member of the Knowledge is Power Club, and you feel that this was really great information, understand this. Our Knowledge is Power Club members are perfect for underclassmen, 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. And if you thought this was really great information, you should see what our Knowledge is Power Club members are getting. I mean, this is just, one aspect of being a member of the Knowledge is Power Club. So not only do you get these master classes, but we also meet together on Zoom for at least once a month with any Q&As. There are college-driven roadmaps to success that are given monthly. There is a continuous monthly curriculum that goes on and on that is relevant to what you should be doing within that month, depending on whether you're a freshman, sophomore, or junior, so that you are setting yourself up to be the best applicant you can be by the time you hit senior year. Okay, so you have my expert advisement of over 20 years of experience with clients, and that, with that direct access with me, 24/7, you can join our Slack community as well, and that's where I answer any questions that you have. So if you wanted to give it a try, there's a monthly membership of $59, or the annual membership saves you a bit at $5.99. And I am your guide on this ride. So any kind of support, any kind of information that you need, right? This is a community that I have started, that are people that care about this process, people that understand that college is going to be one of the largest, biggest investments that they're going to make as a family. Your money is going to go to college, and it's going to be a huge chunk. And, when you think about those large investments in your life, when you think about buying a home, you hire a real estate agent. When you think about making investments for future retirement, you hire a financial advisor. This is one of those huge investments where, why are you going it alone? Why are you relying on a guidance counselor at your school that has 100 people that they're responsible for? Okay, you want the advisement, you want to do this correctly, and you want to get into your dream college, and that's why I'm here. And starting that information early as an underclassman is really key to this whole entire process, because it is not something that you just suddenly come into senior year. This is a progression of information and knowledge that you attain year over year to make those best decisions come the time where you are going to decide which college you go to. But even prior to that, which ones are going to be applied to. So go ahead if you want more information to join the club. If you just want to investigate a little further, go ahead and scan that QR code. And if you are also interested in receiving free resources from College Driven, understand that I have a Facebook page, I have an Instagram page. YouTube is running Office Hours on Wheels, where we are discussing various topics. And in addition to that, please do not take any college tour unless you have downloaded my free guidebook on the homepage of collegedriven.com and you have read through it. And it's such a fantastic resource for you to not waste one college visit ever. It teaches you how to plan it, the purpose of it, how to focus on it, what to do when you get there. And it really, truly is a fantastic resource for any age of when you start going on those college tours. And then finally, please subscribe to my blog. That's where I'm talking about all this college stuff. And, hopefully you are subscribed so that you then know when we have a new blog post. So once again, Passion Project Brainstorming in August. Hope to see you there. And if you'd like to attend for free, love it is the free code. Okay? All right. Thank you so very much. I appreciate you being here, and I hope that you received a lot of information from this masterclass. Thanks.